Hey everybody, before we get started, we wanted to give you a heads up that today's episode will include discussions about suicide and an inappropriate relationship between a teenager and a teacher. If those are topics that you'd like to steer clear of, we totally get it, and we will see you next episode. Also, if you or someone that you know is in crisis, you can call the Suicide and Crisis Hotline by dialing 988 or calling RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, at 1-800-656-4673. We will put links to those organizations in the show notes of this episode. I would also like to dedicate this episode to Michelle Rooney, who was a beautiful soul that left this world far too early. Please get help if you need it. The world is a better place with you in it. Now, on with the show. Go watch a movie with your sibling.
Stay safe and stay connected,
baby.
Brother Sibling. Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie, a podcast where two siblings talk about movies. Yeah, shock. Awesome. It's the goober coming in with a goob attack. Oh, that's right.
Oh my god.
This week's Chit Watch video is Skeleton Twins. All right. How often do you see Bill Hader's penis in this?
What is your mom doing later? Is it me? Oh no. This has gone off.
Can we make a whole other satire podcast that's just us doing that?
It's just you and me.
It can be that for like 20 minutes. I don't think I have the energy to do that for like an hour.
If I took Adderall and had like 5 espresso shots, I would have the energy to do that for maybe 15 minutes. Oh my god.
Yeah, you need to be hopped up on a Monster Energy drink and also 2 espressos.
Just to be clear, I have a prescription for Adderall. I don't like recreationally take it. I do have a prescription for it.
Right.
Like medically necessary that I take speed.
Yes.
I'm super cool.
All right. That was a fun one. That was the fun take. Let's do a slightly more contained take. Thank you, everyone, for joining our show. Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie, a podcast where two siblings, hey, that's us, talk about movies we love from our childhood and our adolescence and our adulthood. And some we may be discovering for the very first time, centered around a different theme every season. I'm your brother, Evan Kerna.
And I'm your sibling, Mare Morgan.
And this week's movie is The Skeleton Twins, one of our collective favorite sibling movies of all time.
Oh, I love this movie. It also fits perfectly into our season's theme, which is siblings!
They are not technically twins, but they definitely are siblings.
Well, I mean, in the film, they're twins.
They're twins? When do they say that?
Aren't they twins?
She is the older sibling.
Am I being crazy? Are they not actually
I don't think they're really twins. I think they're just, like, psychologically twins.
Oh, they're like us.
Right. Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Understood. But anyway, so yes, the season's theme is siblings, and this is our season finale.
Hey, season 2 coming to a close.
Don't know what we're going to do next season, but this season has been a hoot and a half, let me tell you.
I've loved it. I've loved talking sibling movies with you and getting into the dirt and the weeds of family.
We're going to have to, in like 5 or 6 seasons, we're going to have to do a like siblings, the Redux, like, because there's so many other sibling movies that I wanted to do this season.
Totally.
There's many, many more, but this particular movie, sliding right into our connections to this film. This is a movie that when Evan and I decided to do Siblings as our season theme, this was this was the first movie that we put on the list, that we were both like, yes, we have to do the Skeleton Twins. We've got to do this movie.
Yeah, it was definitely. I do think it was your suggestion first, but I quickly was like,
100%.
yes,
This is a
definitely.
great movie. Another one that
Mhm.
I don't know if a ton of people have seen this movie. Like, I don't know if this is.
Mhm.
It was definitely like a smaller, like pseudo indie budget.
Yeah, it was definitely indie. It was made for $1 million, which is not a lot of money for a movie, like at all. Apparently, they had to. Did in your research for the movie? Did you watch the 10th anniversary
Yeah, the Vulture interview.
screening Vulture interview with Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader?
It was great, and like Craig Johnson as a fun little.
Yeah, they were talking about how they were like there was no crafty. They were like eating
Yeah,
potato chips basically for
yeah,
snack breaks, and like they were getting like for the Halloween scene they were like putting on their
yep.
costumes in a Starbucks bathroom. So there's like yeah,
No,
this movie had no money.
yes, and wait for it, wait for it. Ooh, my koozie is the USDA.
The sweet, sweet
Yeah,
taste of
a government
USDA.
organization that might not exist soon. So this might be a relic in another couple days.
Just enjoy what you can of the USDA while it lasts. I hope you like not getting sick from your food, or I hope you don't like not getting sick from your food. Whatever. The USDA rules for all the things it does.
I hope you like food safety laws and knowing that the meat that you buy is safe to consume, because that could be gone soon. Anyways, so to let's talk about our actual connections to this film, first time we watched it, etc.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this movie came out in 2014. Um, at which time, say it with me, I was 24. That's right, everybody knows.
Now they do.
Now they do, yeah. So I was 24 when this movie came out. I saw it. I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it soon after it came out.
Mhm.
I can't remember if it was a recommendation from you or someone else, but when I was 24, I had just gotten married. I had
Woohoo!
also, woohoo! I had also just graduated from college. I had just moved back to our hometown. And I'll be totally honest, this 24 to like 28 was probably one of the darker and more sustained periods of depressive episode that I have ever had in my life. It was not a good time.
A real Middle Earth second age kind of situation going on.
Yeah, it was like a whole thing. There was a lot going on. But so I was sort of in the zone to really key into this movie.
Yeah.
And I think I keyed into it very much at the time, and I think it still resonates with me today. I mean, luckily and very thankfully, like medication and therapy and like getting a divorce, like I'm in a much better place now in my life, where massive depressive episodes are not a part of my life anymore, with a great deal of effort.
Yes.
So yay mental health, but also like I remember watching this movie and really just loving the dynamic between Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig's characters.
Hmm.
I loved the writing of the film, the acting, like it was that perfect blend of lightness and darkness, basically, as a movie. So it was very, um, yeah, it's a standout to me, and I think you're going to talk a little bit more about where this kind of fits in with the larger like timeline of movies and comedy and all of that stuff. But
Sure.
I just remember watching it, and it was maybe one of the first movies that I saw when I was an adult about an adult sibling relationship that I
Mhm.
was like, they get it. They get it. Like,
Yeah.
it's right there. They did it. Like, they nailed that dynamic.
Mhm.
Pitch perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they captured something, and it's a testament to the fact that it was like, Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig coming off of 7 years working on SNL together very closely, which is just
Yeah.
like a like a pressure pot of just getting to know people. And if you like them, you're gonna like them. If you hate them, you're gonna have to figure out how to
Yeah.
like them.
It's going to be an issue and you're going to have to learn to work together.
Yeah. So we'll talk some more about that hopefully. But yeah, my connection to the movie, I remember the first time I saw it, I was going up to Portland for a job. I also did not see it in the theaters like right when it came out. But yeah, I was going up to Portland for a job. I was crashing on the couch of this cute girl that I thought I might maybe have had a
Oh
chance with.
no.
We
Oh
watched this
no.
movie in her apartment, and while I did enjoy the film very much, the vibe left over was definitely not one of getting lucky.
This is
Like,
not a
well, I'm gonna go to bed now. Good night.
oh my god, that's like the first time I watched I saw The Lighthouse on a
On a
date.
date.
I saw The Lighthouse on a
So,
date.
you want to go get eaten by a seagull? Oh, sorry, spoilers. Anyway,
Spoilers. Yeah, the best part was that it wasn't my suggestion, it was my date suggestion, and
nice.
she hated it, and I fucking keyed into that shit, and I
Yeah.
loved it, and like, somebody didn't get a second date. Who was that somebody? It was me. Me
Well,
was the
guess
person.
what? You
But you have bad
didn't need.
taste.
Yeah, you didn't want her anyway because that bitch has bad
I
taste.
That bitch
Because The
has
Lighthouse
bad
is excellent.
taste. Yeah, The Lighthouse is one of the best movies ever made. But we're talking about the Skeleton Twins.
Yes.
Um,
Um. Yeah. So even amidst that backdrop of being like, okay, struck out on that one. That's fine.
of not
Uh,
getting laid.
Yeah, the flick still had a beautiful representation of a really great sibling dynamic, especially one of dare I say, some kind of fucked up but beautiful people. So it's stuck around with me since then. I think I've watched it like one other time since then, and yeah, I mean just the chemistry of Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig obviously carries this movie. It's all about them, and I'm so glad that they found this thing to do together as a film project.
Yeah,
It really kind of
it's
like uh, gives you a little preview of like things in their career to come too, of like the kind of the dramedy and the dry wit and the everything that comes along with that. So
yeah. I know. This movie is very important in terms of I think both of their careers as the sort of like pivot point where it was like we are incredible comedic actors, and that's
mhm.
not all that we can do. Um, who just also like Bill Hader, Kristen Wiig, 10 out of 10 on both of you. Like you're both incredible, phenomenal actors, and I love you so much.
Yeah, as a person who loves I wouldn't even call it a challenge, the comfort zone of making my sibling laugh and vice versa.
Yeah,
Clearly Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig have a similar kind of dynamic where they're like
seriously.
friendly, and it's like instant giggle fest as soon as they're around each other. And so it was very nice to see them representing this kind of dynamic where you're like, shit's kind of fucked up, and I'm sad and angry and frustrated, but also farts,
Yeah, it's pretty. I just any if you watched any interviews with Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig, they're very funny because it's that thing of like when you and like the person that you know the best in the world are just doing shit to make each other laugh, and like nobody else is in on the joke or thinks it's that funny, but like you're
Right.
having a great time.
Yeah.
It's that. It's fantastic, and I 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I love the dynamic of it.
Yeah. And testament to the movie for figuring out a way to represent like two people who are very close as like very intimate in jokes while still being funny to the audience as well. You know, that's a tough one to pull off. Let us talk about the plot synopsis of this film, brought to us by our robot overlords at ChatGPT. Should I start us off?
Yeah, you can do the whole thing if you want, or do you want me to do some of it?
Yeah, since this is like season finale,
Oh,
Skeleton Twins
no.
will jump back and forth. Yeah, here, I'll do the opening, you do the
Okay,
second paragraph, and then we'll
got
jump back
it.
and
We'll
forth.
switchy. I love
Yeah.
it.
hmm The Skeleton Twins, 2014, is a dark comedy drama film directed by Craig Johnson and starring Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader, and co-written by Mark Heyman.
Estranged twins. See, they are twins, Evan. JPT says so.
I don't always trust JPT, but okay, maybe they're
You
twins.
shouldn't. You should not trust ChatGPT for anything, except film synopses.
Right.
Estranged twins.
Siblings.
Maggie. We're never gonna get through this.
Mm-mm.
Estranged twins/siblings, Maggie and Milo, haven't spoken in 10 years, but a pair of unexpected events reunites them under unusual circumstances. Milo survives a suicide attempt just as Maggie is contemplating one of her own.
Cue laughter.
Cue laughter. It's hilarious, I swear. It's not. She invites him to stay with her and her husband Lance in their hometown in upstate New York.
Upstate. As the twins reconnect, they confront the emotional scars from their dysfunctional childhood, unresolved grief, and personal failures. Yay! Milo struggles with his stalled acting career and an inappropriate past relationship, while Maggie hides secrets about her marriage and her dissatisfaction with life.
Through their rekindled bond, filled with dark humor, tender moments, and painful revelations, they help each other rediscover a sense of hope and purpose.
The film is poignant and emotionally raw, but balanced with sharp wit and a memorable lip sync scene to Starship's Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. It explores themes of family, depression, identity, and the redemptive power of sibling love.
And JPT back to humans.
Well, that's fun.
Human stuff.
Yeah, humans doing
so
human
it's like
things.
So it's just like a super funny, light comedy film about suicide and trauma.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. I think we can all agree.
Yeah. And underage love affairs and adultery and yeah. What else can get thrown in there? That's about it, actually.
That's mostly it. That's a shitty mom. Shitty
Oh, yeah.
mom.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That lady.
Oh, my God. That fucking woman. Oh, we'll talk about her in a second.
So let's get into talking about the cinema stuff. Little background about this movie. Directed and co-written by Craig Johnson, co-written as well with by Mark Heyman. Craig Johnson came on the scene with another movie called True Adolescence, which got him into the Duplass brothers circle of people. This film,
a lot of sense.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. He's in the vibe with the Duplass brothers.
Definitely, yeah. True Adolescence stars, I think, whichever one is the more actory of the two. Mark, I guess.
Mark Duplass, yeah. Mark Duplass mostly acts, and Jay mostly like writes and directs.
Yeah, so it starred him. It's kind of a coming of, it's like a estranged, down on his luck guy, being forced to babysit a young boy and developing a relationship together and kind of, both coming together. So he's Craig Johnson has made a great career for himself as a television director, doing lots of different TV shows that I can't find right now.
that you know off the top of your head that
I
you are very
recognized
well aware
them.
of?
I
I
recognized them when I
recognize
looked at
the
his
name.
IMDb thing, and I was like,
I
"Oh, that's cool
know.
that he did all those things." Um, but he recently wrote and directed a new movie of his own in the last 2 years or so called Alex Strangelove, about a young man's queer awakening in high school. This movie is also co-written by Mark Heyman, who also wrote Black Swan. Interesting.
Oh
Um,
shit.
One interesting little tidbit via Wikipedia: this movie was originally going to have Milo and Maggie, or sorry, was originally going to have Milo as a drag queen and also have a more sort of traditional road trip movie type plotting. But Craig and Mark both decided to go for a more subdued tone. They were really influenced by the work of Hal Ashby, who's the director of movies such as Harold and Maude, part of the sort of new Hollywood movement of, that age of boomer filmmakers kind of taking over
Mhm.
Hollywood in the 70s. And also the work of Alexander Payne, the director of Sideways. They figured that tone would be a little bit more appropriate for the subject matter that they were covering. So I just thought it was interesting how those things develop. And really, that's all I've got about the sort of background of this. It's like I don't know if it's autobiographical in any way, but clearly there is something here that was connective tissue for these people making the movie. So thank you, Craig
Yeah.
Johnson, for making a great film.
Thanks, Craig Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah,
You really cared about this project and brought it to
you nailed
fruition
it,
and
buddy. You nailed
you
it.
nailed you nailed it. You nailed it. Uh,
Do you want to get into talking about the characters and who these people
hell
are?
yes. Hell yes, I do. All right. So the two main characters are Milo and Maggie. Milo, portrayed by Bill Hader. The So I went in and I wrote the character descriptions for these people. And I wrote Milo, a literal gay disaster, but not in an exploitative or gross way. Life just hasn't gone Milo's way, but he is a
Mm-mm.
literal gay disaster.
It sure has
Um,
not.
and I would just say, like, there's obviously a lot of controversy in the realm of like, should straight actors play gay characters or trans characters, etc. Um, I think there is certainly a place to say, like, there are certain stories that it is important to put in the hands of queer and trans actors, writers, directors, etc. And along with that, I think Bill Hader does an exceptional job, and this is, from the writing as well, but also the actor coming to it, that like, this is a great example of how a straight actor can play a gay character, right? It is not a caricature, it is not overblown. It's just a nuanced and really well observed portrayal of someone that is just generally struggling with his life, and his sexuality is a part of it. It informs who his character is, but it's not like his sole defining only character trait is like, am gay.
Right.
There's so much more to the character and to the characterization, and Hader brings that in a really, really beautiful way. And also, just Milo as a character is just like, he's so sassy. Like, he just cannot be serious for like a single second. And I was like, I identify. Uh,
I
and
know the feeling.
I know the feeling. And yeah, like, watching, there's a scene where he and Lance are like clearing brush on a trail, and I was just like, this is giving me a lot of joy. He's like picking up like one twig at a time and like throwing. He's like, oh god.
I know.
I was just
Yeah,
like, yeah.
wearing his what is that kind of scarf called that was popular
It's
back in the 20
Oh,
teens?
20 teens. I don't remember. I know exactly, like, the pattern, like the checker pattern kind of
Yeah, the
thing. Yeah.
checkered pattern
It's just,
scarf that gay
again,
people loved, gay men loved at the time. Everybody
it
loved
was
it, honestly, but it was
honestly,
one of those signifiers
yeah,
of
but it was just a
homosexuality,
great,
it felt at the time.
but it was just one of those great things where I was like, it isn't a character of like, oh my god, I can't. It was just like, no, he just like literally does not want to be there, like at all, and nothing in his life has been like, yeah, I'd love to go work with my like super dude bro brother-in-law on a trail. Like, fuck that. No, absolutely not. That sounds awful. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I'm also not a camping gay. That's like a whole other form.
Just a yard work gay.
Just a yard work gay. Just a like a yard work and hiking gay, but like, ooh, I sleep in bed.
My bed's there at the end of the day. Yeah,
Exactly.
I want to just mirror what you have to say about that. It's a great portrayal, and yeah, I agree. Like, this is, yeah, I understand that we need to get more representation of, and more people act, in roles that they are appropriate for. It's better to get just more people on screen that wouldn't typically have the job, but also it is acting. And if you're good at acting, then you can play people well, and gay people should be able to play straight people and straight people gay and all the shades in between, it's like, it's a great, this is the theater of the mind, and it's good to open yourself up to that kind of play, and to take it seriously when you're representing a character who is not like you, and to take it seriously.
Yeah,
And
who has an identity that is different than yours.
yeah, and Bill Hader uh, obviously takes the role very seriously and brings a lot of great things to it. And I just want to gab about just how good Hader is at his. It's like
Mm-hmm.
he has this insane ability to play almost anyone believably. Like, you just absolutely believe in this movie that he is gay, suicidal, anxious, all the things that make up Milo's character. But then you also totally believe him when he plays Barry, who's this intense, emotionless killer who just has this weird, sort of psychotic desire to act. It's like,
Yes.
I don't know. I'm just in awe of like what Bill Hader who was not trained as an actor. He took improv classes and just loved movies, right? Always wanted to be a director, and has been one since. But he just has this. It it's crazy when you see it's like Jim Carrey or whatever, and talk about whatever Jim Carrey's kind of like
Or
own
like Adam
situation is.
Sandler.
Yeah, well, people who have a natural ability to kind of like chameleon, like become this other person and like
Mm,
slip on a character, and you see it in Bill Hader in his sketch work, who is so it's so much about the voice, like he's a great
mhm,
mimic and a great he does great impressions, which is not everybody's bag, but he really does those well. Like, he's kind of known for it, but it's also deeper than that. Like, the impressions come from an ability to kind of like instantaneously like dip into this character that he is not, and this sort of ability to kind of morph into a new person at a moment's notice. So I'm just kind of in awe of that natural ability. It doesn't come along very often, and I think he's one of those talents that just that is we're lucky that somehow, since it was not the thing he was trying to do, really came to the forefront. So yeah,
yeah.
I'm very
Well,
impressed by
and
Bill Hader's ability to do that.
absolutely. And Skeleton Twins is specifically the reason that he got Barry, is because somebody at HBO had seen Skeleton Twins and
Mhm.
said, we want Bill Hader in Barry because like he can totally do this.
Oh,
When
cool! I
previously,
did not know that.
yeah, when previously he had only really been a comedic actor. And
Mhm.
so just
That's
great
cool.
job, Bill Hader. Yeah.
It's also such a cool sort of evolution from like Stefan, a character that he played on Weekend
Yes.
Update, like greatly, who's like a very intensely hip, gay, on the scene kind of person, who is a
Like
bit
very flamboyant.
very
Like
flamboyant, very and
and
its own kind of version of a caricature, although Stefan is definitely has very specific things about his character that makes him interesting and not just like gay guy on Weekend Update.
I was
But
gonna say, I was like, even Stefan, which is like a very like keyed up, like, gay character,
yeah.
um, is still like again, it doesn't feel exploitative. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel it. There's something that is, and I think this is what Bill Hader brings to all of his roles. Like there's so much conviction and there's so much like appreciation and like you're saying, that chameleon ability
Hmm.
to just get into that character, that it feels really true, whether it's a sketch on Weekend Update for SNL or this like very subdued, nuanced performance.
Yeah, not a lot of
And
people have that, like, come with that ability naturally. A lot of people like try for
no,
years to be able to accomplish that. So it's great when you get to see somebody who has that.
yeah. And talking about another person with just like incredible range, let's talk about Maggie, who's
Yeah.
portrayed by Kristen Wiig.
Maggie?
Uh,
Sorry,
Maggie.
I've been watching a lot of Simpsons lately.
Yeah, okay. Um, the description that I wrote of her is a literal straight disaster, but not in a fun, I take Xanax and drink too much Chardonnay and overshare way, more in the I'm deeply unhappy and sit with a gnawing pit of depression in my stomach at all times, but convince myself I'm fine way. Um,
Yeah, the best kind
yeah,
of way.
it's like Kristen Wiig is another person who I would say is probably one up there with Bill Hader, one of my absolute favorite actors. Like, every single thing that I have ever seen Kristen Wiig in, she has been phenomenal.
Yeah,
Um,
she's great and everything. Yeah.
yeah, and she's somebody that is so good at over the top crazy. You think of like SNL and like Target Lady, like so insane.
Yeah, that
But
makes me
but
think
in
of yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no,
I
go
was
ahead.
no, I was going to be completely off topic. I just wanted
Oh,
to
okay.
I was just going to gab about the Maria Bamford show for a minute, but that's not germane. Go
Not
to
Jermaine Barkham.
Target with mom. If you go to Target, mom will buy you stuff.
Oh my
Uh,
god, we'll have to do another sidetrack of
we
Maria
could do a
Bamford.
whole podcast about Maria
An-
Bamford, probably like
another.
top 5 American comedians
Amazing.
alive
Another
today.
another piece of media that you and I bonded over. But yeah, Maggie, Kristen Wiig is so fucking good at playing characters, which is a thing that I think is hard to pull off,
Hmm.
and few people do it convincingly, which is somebody who is getting through the day and is also so sad and is
Yeah.
not doing well,
Hmm.
and doing that with a lot of empathy and heart, and it's really incredible to watch her in this
Yeah.
film. I'll be honest, like it's really incredible.
Yeah, there's something that everybody who I'm realizing, because I'm sort of now imbibing a lot of, like, because this is the 50th anniversary season of SNL, and they're making a
Yeah.
lot of content around that, and because the Lonely Island and Seth Meyers have a podcast that I'm listening to pretty religiously because I just love the Lonely Island. Um, I'm getting this insight into being a person who's been through the SNL sort of like school of
Mm,
hard knocks. I think what makes everyone who survives that arena so good at what they do is that they are not just performers, right? They're performers and they're writers. Like they're
yes.
creating characters. They have to, through the sort of anxiety of the performance anxiety, they have to come up with, like, what am I good at? What is a character I can do? What can I bring to these sketches? How do I collaborate with people? It gives you a sort of very fully fledged ability to morph what you do, but basically, like, you're not just a performer, you're also a person contributing to the ideas of things. And
Yeah.
in all the interviews that I listened to where Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig are together, it sounds like Bill Hader is just like, oh, this woman is a genius. Like, she has
Yeah, I think
great characters. I mean, her what are they called? I keep forgetting their name. The blah 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 girls, sisters. And I'm Hannah. Her
oh yeah,
big
with the
forehead
big
and the
head
tiny
forehead and the
hands.
tiny hands. Yeah.
I feel bad for
It's
not. It's like a super popular character. I just can't
I know.
remember her
It's
name at the moment. But
That's the other thing. I think that, the people that came out of this era of SNL, which is like Maya Rudolph and Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig and Andy Samberg, those are all people where I think you're totally right. They have a strong inclination towards writing and being in charge of their characters in a different way,
mhm,
and appreciating, that kind of thing of like you have to and like also coming from like sketch comedy of like you have to just show up and bring it 110% every time.
yeah,
um and as a character, Maggie is, like I said, she's just so sad, but she's so invested in
mhm,
this like prescribed version of what like being fine means, that she's kind of divorced herself from all of the things that actually bring her joy and
mhm,
make her happy, and because who she actually is not vibing with who she thinks she should be.
yeah,
She's very unhappy, and it's a very like subtle and I keep saying the word nuanced. I'm sorry, but that's the word that keeps coming up.
word
It is a very
choice,
a
diction,
word. Use a thesaurus, Meredith.
yeah.
Our mother's voice. That's not what our mom sounds like. That's not
That'd
what
be
she sounds like
something
at all.
else.
That'd be something else if she was just like Meredith Claire Kerner. I swear.
I think you put it really well in your notes. I love that you put it. This is how I put it. And I really like this how you said this. She seems like someone who's running with no clear idea where she's running to.
Yeah, and
Just
that's
keep on running in place, Maggie.
keep on running play because she's also somebody, she's like she has this sort of, she has a good job, she has a great husband, she has a nice house, but she still is like having extramarital affairs and lying to her husband about wanting to get pregnant, and just like is that was what I kept thinking of, was that like she's running, like she keeps running away from
hmm
stuff, but she has no clear destination in
Yeah,
mind when
yeah.
she's running.
It's very telling that she keeps on putting off her honeymoon with her husband,
Yes.
which the more you learn of how she's like basically sleeping with a bunch of instructors that she's had taking classes to
Mhm.
do stuff at. Um, uh, she is. I don't know. It just really interests me, this personality type that you see more represented in media these days, of like this woman who kind of uses sex as a defense mechanism to deflect their deeper feelings and their deeper hurt. And yeah, it's very telling that she keeps on getting instructors for a different kind of honeymoon that she wants to have, but she keeps putting off the honeymoon because even though they're married, like the honeymoon maybe represents something that is like a sort of completion or like a happiness that she doesn't want to allow herself to have, a kind of like
Yeah.
it's almost like the consummation of the marriage that she's like not willing to go to really admit to having. And it's
Yeah.
also like a level of security that she feels like she can't allow herself to have either.
Yeah, it's
um
like emotional consummation, not physical
right,
consummation
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
marriage that's completing a circuit. And also I I don't think we specifically said this because it wasn't in the like outline.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of underpinning both Milo and Maggie is that their father committed suicide when
Right,
they
of
were
course. That's kind of a
when
big
they
point of
when
the
they were
movie.
when they were 14 years old. Another
Mm-hmm.
point to them being twins. They were both 14 at the same time.
All right, fine. Fine, Meredith.
So
You're right.
they
I'm wrong. I'll get a thesaurus.
it's been recorded. Keep it for later. So underpinning both of them is like obviously a history of familial mental illness and having the intense trauma of not just losing a parent when you are that age, which is already traumatic, but the added trauma of knowing that that parent chose to end their life.
Yeah,
And that is sort of, I feel like, is underpinning both of those characters in a lot of ways.
totally.
Just in terms of you've
If he can choose
experienced,
to do it, why can't I?
yeah, because the film does open essentially with both Maggie and Milo, of Milo attempting suicide,
Mhm.
and as Maggie is about to down a handful of pills, she gets a call from the hospital saying your brother has attempted suicide, and you're listed as his next of kin.
Mhm.
um and so both of them have obviously been dealing with the weight and the heaviness of not just mental illness, but also like mental illness along with shattered expectations of what you thought your life was going to be versus what it actually is, the person you thought you were going to be and the person you actually are,
Mhm.
as well as the underlying trauma of our father was the person that we really connected to as a parent,
Mhm.
and then he opted to not be there any
Yeah.
longer, and that in informs so much of who they are.
Yeah.
um
I can imagine if anything gets hard in the back of your mind, you're like, "Well, Dad opted.
they
D-
even
Dad dipped. Why can't I?" You know?
Well, and they even say, I think it's Maggie says at one point, like, Dad just saw a way out,
Right. Yeah. Which is such
which
a devastating way to put it. Like, ugh.
it is such a devastating way to put it, and
But
I
when you're
think it's also,
depressed, that's how it feels. You know?
I was gonna say, I think it's also a very empathetic way to put it,
Hmm.
because the reality is, like, when you are intensely depressed, it does seem like the best option, not just for you, but for everybody in your life.
Hmm.
Depression is this like mean, evil, like virus that infects your whole brain and says, like, not only would you be happier if you weren't here, everybody else in your life would be happier if you weren't here too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I don't
that
maybe and
voice,
maybe reasonably, it's not even like it will be like everyone else will be happy, but like it'll be easier on everyone else
it'll
because
be easier for,
the reality of
yeah,
dealing with a person with depression is that it is very sucking of your energy, for lack of a better word, like
it is.
for it.
It is. It absolutely is, and I think that the in kind of that way of the cruelest trick the devil ever played was convincing people he didn't exist.
Usual suspects.
Kind of usual suspects. Um, I think it is that is the cruelest part of depression, is that it
Yeah.
is a voice that comes from inside you and
Hmm.
says and you don't matter, and the people in your life will genuinely be relieved if you take the burden of caring about you off of their plate. Which
Right.
I would just like to say, real talk. I've absolutely been there. And guess
Yeah.
what? It's not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true.
Mm-mm.
Right? And it's
No, your family will absolutely prefer you to be around. Or even if your family wouldn't, your people around you in your community
you
absolutely would.
absolutely 1,000%. People would rather that you be a burden, quote unquote burden,
Hmm.
and reach out for help than for you to not be around anymore. Depression is a cruel thought virus. Depression is especially cruel because it feels like it is you.
Right.
And I think the hopefully if you or someone out there that you know is suffering from depression, one of the hardest things that you can do, but also one of the most powerful things you can do, is recognize that your depression is a separate entity. It is not who you are. It is a separate brain chemistry, whatever, however you need to characterize it, but like that is a different thing than the default of who you are as a person. And like
Yes.
yeah.
Similar to addiction, your brain
Mhm.
is playing tricks on you. And that's tough
Yeah.
because when your brain is playing tricks on you, it's hard not to think, how am I supposed to get away from my brain, though? Like, it
Yeah,
is.
exactly. You can't get away from your own internal thoughts, and truly the world is a better place with you in it.
Yes.
People will really, really care if you're not there anymore. So
Yeah.
it's kind of this through line, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but the kind of through line of this is that, you know, these two siblings have a parent who committed suicide, and both of them are in a really depressive space and a depressive zone in their lives, and they kind of, yeah, they look at that and go, well, dad did it. Like, yeah, he took these, you know, he found a way out of this version of life, which is devastating because it's like you don't want that to be your legacy to your children.
Yeah.
I would hope if you're a parent out there, you don't want that to be the legacy to your kids.
Yeah, I would hope not either, but yeah, some people opt for it. But luckily, it's a tough road and it's a tough deal to be, it's a tough card. Sorry, it's a tough hand to be dealt in this life when you have mental problems like that, which Meredith and I are quite aware of,
Very much.
from personal and close family relation and
Very
extended
much.
relation and friendship relationship. But there is work that you can do if you want to get out of it, and people in depressive states, I think, really deep down do want to get out of it because it's hell to go through.
It's
But there
absolutely
is
hell.
stuff that there is work you can do and professionals that help you get through it, that help you manage it. It's a monkey on your
Yes.
back that maybe you don't ever get to fully get rid of, much like alcoholism or any kind of addiction or
Yeah.
other kind of things, but there are plenty of ways to manage it and live a good life, you know.
Yeah. It is not your fault, but it is 100% your responsibility.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Go. Okay. Sorry, we got sidetracked. Let's continue talking about characters. There's just a couple, two or three more characters that we want to touch on. The next character is Rich, who is played by Burrell. Um, I wrote, just a straight up yikes, a cautionary tale about how you can convince yourself that you're a quote unquote good person while, in fact, being a predator. Seems like a guy who would use the Kevin Spacey defense. Which, if you're not familiar with the Kevin Spacey defense, Kevin Spacey is a predator, straight up. Like, he is a predator. And when
Yeah.
his,
Great
when
actor. Bad dude.
bad person, when the allegations against Kevin Spacey came out of, you know, God, I don't even know how much long ago, 8 or 9 years ago, when the allegations came out against him, he basically came out and said, well, I'm gay. And I was like,
What a horrible defense.
oh, fuck your whole self. Being gay and being a predator do not in any single world coincide. The fact that, like, whatever, sorry, I'm about to start yelling about stuff. Evan, you go. I'm sorry. You go, and then I'll yell some more.
Okay. Yeah. I felt before I could tell what was really going on with this relationship as portrayed on the screen, I felt sympathy for this guy right up until he asked if Milo would show his script to an agent. Red flag!
Red flag!
This person doesn't care about anybody besides himself.
No.
Yeah, this actor Ty Burrell is probably
great.
He's great in this role, and he's also probably most well known for being the dad on Modern Family, and he is so funny in that role and
So
really,
funny.
really good. I have not actually watched all of Modern Family, but like the episodes that I have caught are like very, he's great. That whole cast is incredible. But yeah, Ty Burrell, good guy. Way to take on the challenge of playing a semi-reformed, probably not really that reformed.
Yeah, so the
child
character
molester, sexual predator.
The character of Rich was Milo's high school English teacher, and you learn throughout the course of the film that Milo and Rich, that Rich pursued a sexual and emotional relationship with Milo when Milo was 15. And a student of Rich's. And
I know at first I was like, oh, this was kind of like a college thing, which is still not cool, but there's like kind of some, and I was like, oh, okay, this was high school? Oh, dear.
Yeah, and I think also this is, again, like, nuanced is the only word I can say, like, because Milo, when he goes back to live with Maggie after his suicide attempt, is back in his hometown and, like, specifically seeks out this man that used to be his English teacher.
Yeah. And Rich's first reaction is, go away. You cannot be here.
Yes. Rich's first reaction is, go away. You cannot be here. And the character of Rich is really interesting. The character does have a lot of depth. And I think there are points that you can definitely see the internal conflict, and he kind of continues to say, like, no, you were a kid. I took advantage of you.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I shouldn't have had a relationship with you, but it was really confusing. But like, look, dude, at the end of the day, you are still a coward who cannot be honest with yourself about your sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, you preyed on a young, vulnerable kid who deserved so much better.
Yeah.
And if the only way that you can have a fulfilling, or like if the only way that you can have a homosexual relationship is with a child, you are an absolute fucking coward, and you need to, like, get yourself to, like, therapy, a treatment center, something, because you are so intensely have so much internalized homophobia that, like, you can't acknowledge the person that you are, and because you can't acknowledge the person that you are, you're causing active harm to others. And, like,
yeah, and interestingly, he does even acknowledge that, it's like kind of in a sort of woe is me, almost feel sorry for me way, but he does cop to the fact, like,
Yeah.
he has a whole speech where he's like, I'm a pussy, like, I fucking suck, like, I'm bad, like, I'm a bad
Yeah.
person who is a coward and who has shirked this part of my life. It strikes me that all of these characters are sort of stuck in this place where they're like not ready to do anything active about their own problems. In fact, that was the thing that I remarked about. Maybe
Mhm.
it's over in the themes, but I'll just cover it now because it's really just a thought. But like, I remember a time in my life where I felt like these characters, right? I feel like Milo, and maybe they even say it, but I feel like Milo and Maggie are probably in their like early 30s or something.
Mid
Maybe,
30, early mid 30s. Yeah.
yeah, maybe mid, maybe they're, yeah, I don't know. I kind of read it as like late 20s, early 30s, possibly, but I definitely remember a time in my life where I was never suicidal or anything. Well, not necessarily, but but I remember just being very kind of like, in that headspace of like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do about this? And it's a very tough period of your life. And Rich is a character who has kind of decided to repress rather than go through the storm to deal with his issues. And yeah, it's it I'm glad that specific kind of time of my life is over. I know a
Oh,
lot of
Lord,
people
yes.
go through something like that where they're just like not prepared to actively do things about their problems, and it's easier to kind of wallow in them. Um, but yeah, that's now there's time to in life to move on to other things to be sad and frustrated about.
Yeah, we have other things
Other
now. Older,
every
you said.
decade, yeah, every decade presents its own frustrations and challenges, and
It
yeah,
sure does.
you can
It
move
sure does.
on
And
from old ones, come to grips with them, and then find new ones to deal with.
yes, absolutely. And I would also just say, like, Rich, I do think it's interesting. I think Chris Johnson is a queer person. Maybe that's
Craig
incorrect.
Johnson.
Craig Johnson, sorry.
I would
Um,
I don't know for sure, but considering that his most recent movie is also about kind of like a queer coming of age
I
film
would
about
almost,
a young
yeah, I
man,
would almost confirm it.
I would assume that,
I would
yeah.
assume. It's, I think, as somebody who has dated, you know, a lot of queer people in my life, it's interesting that this story in particular of like a young queer kid who has experienced trauma and is also coming to terms with, their sexuality or their gender identity or whatever, and that being very big and important while also dealing with other trauma of their life, that there are adults who are unscrupulous and who are predatory,
Hmm.
who themselves are not able or willing to be true to who they are. And so what they see is a vulnerable young person who is questing for their identity. And that
Hmm.
older person who says, well, that's always something that I've known about myself, but I've repressed it. And it's okay for me to explore and pursue a relationship with a young person, um, who is openly saying that they are, gay, trans, whatever, in a really inappropriate and predatory way. And it's
Yeah, not okay.
that it is never okay, and that is always 100% the fault of that adult who is perpetrating that. That is never the fault of the kid because they are looking for acceptance. They are looking for acknowledgement that their identity is valid and loved, and they don't have anybody in their life who is an adult who is accepting and loving of that identity in a safe, healthy, respectful way. They have adults who are acknowledging that in a very not okay, predatory way. But it, to the kid, it feels the same, right? Like the input is the same, even though it like ultimately is not.
Yeah.
Um,
And to bring this back to like the art of filmmaking a little bit, like this is the challenge for writers, right? It's like, because despite people doing things that are, despicable or horrendous or wrong or ill-intentioned, you still have to find the way, you still have to find a way to sympathize with them to the extent that you can draw a portrait of them as a real person. Because as they come across on the page, like you can't, like it will ring false and bring the movie down if they are a caricature of what you think in your head makes a bad person, or something like that. And
and
that's a tough
that
challenge, but it's an interesting one to sort of get in the head of like what motivated this person to do this? Like why would they be this kind of person? Like what are they repressing, And that's part of the challenge of taking on
yeah,
writing about stuff like this. And it probably helps to know people like that, in your life,
yeah, it's
unfortunately.
and that is the really interesting thing about the character of Rich, and like hats off to Ty Burrell, who really brings a lot of compassion and empathy to a character that is like ultimately like you're a pedophile, like you had sex with a kid, like no. um but you see this much more, you see his internal conflict, and you see his, like, you, even at the end of this film, I was like, I hate this character, but I can't not have like a modicum of compassion for him in a weird way.
Hmm.
And that also, that is not to say um pedophiles and people who are attracted to children are not now, nor will they ever be part of the LGBT community. I've seen your reasoning. It's disgusting. You are predators and you need help. Okay? Being attracted to someone who cannot consent or who does not understand does not make you part of the LGBTQ plus community. Never has, never will. And yet, like, that is 100% accurate. And the portrayal of this character, Rich, is very nuanced. And like, I hate him and I don't like him. And you do sort of because of the writing, you can kind of understand his reasoning for it. And it's flawed reasoning. It's bad reasoning. It's not reasoning you should ever use. But again, like, it is a strength of the writing that you can see that, right? That you have, as a viewer, you have that conflict of
You have immediate
you
sympathy for him because because
yeah,
he clearly means something to Milo. Like he clearly has, like Milo clearly still
absolutely.
has a soft spot for him.
Yeah.
Whether it was because it was uh, ill-gotten and wrongfully started, doesn't change the fact that it was an emotional connection for Milo, and
Yeah,
we're rooting for Milo.
absolutely.
So we see Rich through his eyes the first time
Yeah.
that we encounter him.
Yeah, exactly. And also just the fact that like the in time, like the relationship that Milo and Rich have is a year after Milo and Maggie's dad commits suicide. I think that that is not inconsequential in that being an important, an emotionally really important relationship for Milo. Even if he is kind of like, I don't see what the issue was, or yeah, I was a kid, but like I'm an adult now, or whatever. Like, regardless, if you're the adult in a situation, the onus is on you to have healthy boundaries and to recognize when a child is in crisis and not prey upon that.
as an adult in a position of power, especially when working with kids, you must appeal to your higher nature, you know?
Yeah, because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You know what? There's a lot of kids out there that are, however old and that like quote unquote seem really mature for their age. But guess what? If you seem mature for your age, it's because you've probably experienced trauma that has made you grow up faster. It does not mean that they are emotionally competent. It does not mean that they have that same emotional core. Like, they are still kids, and you are the adult. If you're an adult, you need to protect children. That goes double, quadruple, a billion times for queer and trans kids. You need to protect those kids. They're extra specially vulnerable. You are not the person that needs to like exercise your own repressed weirdness about whoever you are as a person on them. That is not an appropriate relationship to have. And I think it is really
And trauma begets trauma, right? Like, who knows?
exactly.
But you can probably assume that Rich himself had some experience with either an older person
Absolutely.
or sexual assault or whatever as a younger person, you know?
Yeah. And has been a victim of societal trauma of, demonizing gay people, or religious trauma of demonizing queer people. Like,
Hmm.
it nobody is without some amount of trauma. And also, when that stops becoming a valid, excuse, reason, whatever, is like when you then go and victimize someone else and traumatize another person, and you're continuing that cycle of trauma. And like, that's never going to be okay.
Truer words have never been said. We'll be right back with more Brother Sibling Movie. We're back. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the more minor characters briefly, because they're also fun and an important part of this movie's makeup.
Yeah. First up is Lance.
Lance, Luke Wilson, a Labrador in human form.
Ugh, God, he plays Maggie's husband, Lance, and oh man, boy oh boy, he's at once very infuriating and very endearing.
Yes, portrayed by Luke Wilson, the more flat-faced of the Wilson brothers.
The more flat faced. Oh my god.
Yeah, Luke Wilson is who you cast when you need an average, attractive, almost family man kind of guy in your
Just an
movie.
affable dude. Just an
Yeah,
affable dude.
yeah, good
Uh,
looking, not too crazy, like straight 7.5.
yeah, he just Lance is just he is like in this movie he's like the kind of quintessential quote, like capital G good guy. Um
Hmm.
he's just like he wants to be a dude and work outside and have kids and go camping and whatever, and like I just like, my dude, go find the literal one straight lady at the climbing gym that you go to and like date her instead. Like, Maggie is not the person for you, my man.
Maggie's too sad for you, bro. Sorry.
She's just dealing with too much shit to like, yeah, there's this whole subplot of her like saying like, yeah, I totally want to be a mom, I totally want to have kids, and then she's still on birth control and still fucking a bunch of other dudes, and it's like, Maggie.
It makes sense why she's at one point was very attracted to him, though, right?
Yeah,
Because
of course it
she's
does.
seeking a sense of stability, and he's definitely like just a stable, good, quote unquote, good guy, right?
Yeah.
And for somebody who is, dealing with depressive episodes, one would think that having an affable person who looks on the bright side, who has a kind of cheery attitude towards life and is active, would be the kind of thing that you'd want to have around you to try to take in some of that influence, right?
Yeah. It's just
Unfortunately, doesn't work that way. Gotta figure out how to do that for yourself in your own version.
yeah, that's the ultimate, I think, sadness, irony, whatever you want to call it. It's just like Maggie is looking so hard and is trying so hard to be this like, happy, normal, fine person that she found the most like normal, happy, fine dude. And
Hmm.
she's actually not that way. And because of that, like she's not fulfilled. She's not actually doing those things because those are all external factors. Those are not internally driven,
Yeah.
wanting to change. And Lance is just like he wears toe shoes and like eats ice cream and is like,
Hey, don't bag on the toe shoes. I
I
don't actually
will.
have any. I don't actually have
I
any.
Evan, if you get toe shoes, we're gonna have to have a really frank sit down discussion about your like mid to late 30s life crisis that you're probably going through.
But they're so comfortable and they conform to the
I
real
can't.
curvature of your foot, and it's how humans are supposed to experience the world.
No, 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 no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Incorrect. No, thank you. So that's Lance. He's a sweet, affable goofball. And then there is Judy, who is Milo and Maggie's mom, who Evan and I both had a strong reaction to.
Yeah, new age ick factor 11.
Ugh,
Jeez.
Jesus.
This bitch comes in hard with her unresolved issues,
Oh my God.
parading as new age healing knowledge.
Yeah, she's, as you say, she is only in one scene, but she plays the crazy boomer bitch so well. And that is, this character is such a great portrayal of the absolute worst version of a boomer parent who is like enlightened and so like, I'm in touch with my chakras and we need to do a cleansing and like, oh my god, like I like vibe with the case of the universe or whatever, and then like is actually at her core a very shitty parent.
Right. I suspect she never wanted to be a mom, you know?
Yes, and I think, credit where credit's due, like, her husband died by suicide, which is a very challenging thing, and you don't get to opt out of being a parent, you know?
Yeah. Unfortunately, some people aren't built for it, but if it
Yeah,
happens, you gotta, and that goes for men and women.
men and women.
This isn't just a you give birth to them, it's your problem kind of situation. This is like if
This is a
you're a
parent. This is
person, you're a
parent.
parent. Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you're a parent, you do not get to opt out of being a parent. It is a
Yeah.
lifelong commitment that you've made.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a quintessential example of somebody who is so like infuriating because it's like, yeah, like you could see, you'd meet that person and you'd meet this woman Judy and you'd be like, oh, she's so like in touch and she's so like has like healing crystals and like calmed down my chakras and da da da, and it's like, yes, and she also didn't go to her daughter's wedding, and she also like is not there for her son, and she's not saying that like once you become a parent that's your only job, right? Like people contain multitudes, but also you made a choice to have children. You're kind of always responsible for those people that you chose to create.
Totally. Played with great gusto by Joanna Gleason, who I don't know from anything else, but she's great in this. It feels like the costume is really doing a lot of work. She's got this kind of
Oh,
like purple cardigan and a big like scarf.
lots of
Um,
rings with like big like semi-precious stones in them.
yes,
Yeah. She lives in Sedona. Of course she
right.
lives in Sedona.
She's probably got a lot of turquoise
Ugh.
somewhere hidden away. I think, not much to say about her. Besides, I think the interesting thing to key into about her character is how, in a crisis point, Milo wants to connect back with his mom,
Mm,
which I think is interesting because probably as a young gay man, the sort of very vibey, effeminate nature of his mother was something that he connected with, and I think that they probably have a stronger connection than Judy and Maggie do.
mhm.
And Maggie, as a woman, or experiences her mother uh, as she sees the world as a woman, and sees and can probably is more in, like, they both are very aware of their mother's flaws, but Maggie is more kind of clued immediately into the flaws of her mother, and kind of doesn't want to have, she obviously has a much more um intense hurt in her that her mom
Mhm.
didn't come to her wedding, so there's that kind of obvious thing. But I think at a deeper level, like, she recognizes her mother's flaws in a much more deeper way, because she's like, well, as another woman, I see, like, what she doesn't have that I could have, that I needed to know about as a young woman coming up in the world. And I don't know, I just think it's interesting, that is how they play the dynamic in the film. Like, Milo's the one that contacts her and is kind of like vibing with her, and like letting her do the sort of like the cleansing ceremony, and like wants his mother's attention, because at a young age there was something about her womanly nature that he was sort of like taking in, and kind of
Yeah.
like turning his, forming an identity from. Whereas Maggie's just like, fuck this stupid bitch. She
Yeah, and
sucks.
it's also the thing too of like, just again in a great moment of writing when Maggie is kind of saying like, "Oh yeah, no, it would be great. Just we've never been invited to come visit you in Sedona." And she's like,
Yeah,
and the mom is like, "Oh, well, come whenever. You don't need an invitation." And Maggie is just like, "I'm gonna call your bluff, bitch. Great. How about next weekend?" And
oh,
it's
that's
like,
actually not so
"Oh,
good.
that's actually not good. Great. How about the weekend after?" "Oh, that's hard. How about the weekend after that?" And it just like it just sort of showcases that dynamic in a way of like, no, you're disappointing and you're continually disappointing, and what your words are not matching your actions, and I care about your actions.
Totally. I'm so sorry this interaction became so toxic.
Oh my god. I was like,
I
bitch,
was
you made
like,
it toxic. Fuck
ah,
you.
oh
Ugh.
man,
I'm
you don't even know what you're doing.
it's like the same thing of like, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. And it's like, that's such a passive aggressive non-apology. Go fuck yourself.
Yep, I've done that one plenty of times.
I know. I've realized how problematic it is to say I'm sorry if I upset you, and instead to reframe it as I am really sorry that I upset you.
Right.
How can I work to avoid hurting your feelings in the future? Right?
Yeah,
Instead of being like, well, if I offended you, then it's on you, as opposed to saying like, I can clearly see that I have offended or upset you or made you angry or whatever.
hmm,
I want to know what happened, and I want to understand so I can not do that again, and not do
exactly.
that in the future.
Let's briefly talk about the mysterious but powerful father figure looming over this whole movie, portrayed
Ew.
by question mark
Don't know.
the mysterious man who gave these fucked up kids all their trauma and all their superpowers. It's like an origin story written by Alan Moore.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's go ahead.
I just thought it would be important. We covered it already, I think, but I just thought it was important to mention the dad as a person who is not really portrayed with any characterization besides what you hear from the kids
Mhm.
about him. He's clearly impacted these kids' lives in great and terrible ways. Dads, don't commit suicide is bad for kids.
Is bad for kids. Please don't do it. Dads and all parents, please no commit suicide is bad.
Yeah. But
Alive,
hey,
alive
there
is
are
good.
alive is good. And also, like, there is a kind of clearly the movie is making a point that the dad, I think, gave these kids their sense of humor, which is so
Yes.
important to the fabric of their being and being
Yeah.
able to kind of like support them through the bad times and to be able to kind of like combat the bad feelings in their life, right? Like their sort of sardonic wit and their ability to shift into a gear of like, this is sad and frustrating and I'm angry, but also there is this silly side that is worth it to keep around in the good times. And it's very telling that they become estranged for 10 years. I'm sure that there is some sort of,
Oh,
oh yes, I mean it's said explicitly that
you
it
learn
is
why. Yeah.
that it's Maggie who kind of like uncovered uh the relationship between Rich and Milo, and Milo probably has carried that chip on his shoulder for a long time, as if it was a bad thing that Maggie did to expose an adult who was fucking with her brother,
She even
and
says like you're my brother. I'm supposed to protect you. Like
totally, yeah.
and I yeah, but I
And it's
think
like,
what
of
you're
course, it hurts Milo too,
of
and then
course.
Milo gets back at her by sort of kind of quasi revealing her where her pills are to Lance. And it made me think like, this is siblings, right? They've simultaneously got each other's backs while they're stabbing each other in it.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because it is I think it is such a good example and I think Milo at one point even says something of like we're better together. You
Yeah,
know, I think that both of them, it's like I can't imagine not talking to you for like 10 years.
I know that
That
sounds crazy.
that sounds insane and awful. Like that sounds so just that's like the worst. I can't imagine not talking to you for 10 years.
Yeah,
Um and yeah, there is this thing where Milo's kind of like we're better together. Like we as a unit are better and we've kind of let all this other shit get in the way and they're still letting that shit get in the way of their relationship and I think each of them not being able to come to terms with trauma, childhood stuff, etc. It's causing this like massive, just roadblock for them. Um,
totally.
and in their relationship, not just in their individual lives, but it's like, yeah, they were like Maggie was actually there. She was trying to protect you. And like, hey, you're being honest with your husband. Milo was trying to get shit out in the open so he would talk about it or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Totally. You were both trying to do good things the best that you could and hurt each other's feelings, but for
Yeah.
the betterment. Yeah, so that's that. What else should we talk about?
So we've talked a lot about the characters for like a large part of this movie because this is obviously like it's an indie movie, like it's very character driven. Um there's two scenes that I would like to just highlight which
Yeah.
are getting high at the dentist. So Maggie's a dental hygienist and she like
Getting high at the dentist. This sounds like my once a month favorite activity.
do you get high at the dentist once a month? That'd be
I
amazing.
wish. That'd be
Oh
cool.
fuck, that sounds
But no.
great. Um, Last time I got high at the dentist, I started crying because I was still numb and I woke up and I thought they had, when I was 16 and I got my wisdom teeth taken out, they were like, there is a small chance that like you'll lose feeling in your lower lip because we might pinch the nerve. And I woke up from anesthesia and my mouth was still very numb. And I
Mhm.
thought that I had lost feeling in my bottom lip and I started crying.
Oh, like forever.
Yeah, like forever. And I cried a lot. And mom was
Mhm.
like, no, you're fine. And I was like, I can't feel anything.
But you were
Just like,
crying and your lower lip was like still hanging loose, so you're
and
like
I was like, and I was like drooling out the side of it.
crying and drooling at the same time.
Crying and drooling at the same time. But no, this scene is just really fun. It's really cute. It's like, I think when you first see Maggie and Milo interacting, you get the sense that there's a level of like dark humor or whatever, but there's obviously a lot unsaid. And this is sort of the first chance that you get to see them as siblings being silly, making each other laugh.
Mhm.
And you get the fact that like these two people love each other so much and they are the perfect complement to one another.
Mhm.
Um, and they're going through really low points in both of their lives, but they're able to sort of get beyond that and have fun with one another. And I really love that scene. I think it's very funny and very sweet.
Yeah, the bits
Yeah.
where Kristen Wiig is like pretending to fart and Bill Hader is making the noises got me pretty hard. That was funny. I want to make a meme out of this scene. It's like that feeling when you and your sibling are just vibing out on laughing gas.
It's so real.
That feels like it would. It's like, oh yeah, that feeling that we all that memory that we all have of like when we
Yeah,
just
getting
like
high on
when
laughing
we
gas.
yeah.
Or, just, like, getting, like, silly high or, like, drunk or whatever, and you're just both,
Yes,
like,
I suppose it's a stand-in for
being
just
stupid idiots, but it's, like,
yeah,
even though you're, like, quote, unquote, "grown-ups," you still get to have this, just, like, we just wanna make each other laugh, and that's really it.
exactly.
That's the whole thing,
That's the whole
and
point.
then it's the whole
Gotta
point,
laugh at
and
something in this life,
might as well be each other, you know? Uh
right?
And then the other scene, of course, which is like fairly iconic, I'm sure it's come up on like your TikTok feeds or YouTube or whatever, is the lip syncing scene where Kristen Wiig is upset and Bill Hader, Maggie is upset, and so Milo puts on a song and starts lip syncing to it, and the song is "Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now" by Starship. It's a stands out in my mind as like truly one of like the most entertaining and best scenes in cinema. I think it's really sweet and cute, and the storytelling and the characterization that comes through during that scene of like essentially Milo being able to sort of bring Maggie back, I think is really important. It sets the stage, but it's him basically being like, come be silly with me, like come enjoy things, come have fun with me.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Let me help pull you back from the brink a
Yeah,
little
like
bit.
you're also staring over the precipice. I am too, but like we can still sing an 80s power ballad together and have a good
Yeah.
time, you know.
Interesting little production note. I thought it was
Oh yeah.
interesting that this uh this as written for initially the song in this scene was actually going to be a Wilson Phillips song, but they used it in Bridesmaids, and
Yep.
Bridesmaids sort of catapulted Kristen Wiig to sort of, she was already well known as from SNL obviously, but Bridesmaids was such a huge phenomenal success, and that was released in 2011. This movie's released in 2013. So obviously they're like, well, we can't just use
We
that
can't
song.
like do that
It'd be,
same
yeah.
song.
Um, and it's charming to me to think about like that filmmaker struggle, because like I sort of remember a movie I was working on where the director encountered a similar situation. For whatever reason or another, they couldn't get the rights or whatever it was. This song that they really wanted to use couldn't be used, and so just you kind of walk in on to ask the director a question, and then just sort of between shooting questions and other things, they're kind of like, sort of aimlessly just wandering through a track list of like other song options, just listening to like 20 seconds of it and sort of moving on and being like, nah, maybe that one, but not quite right. And
Yeah.
finding the different song because of, uh, it's charming to me because it just elicits a sense memory in me of this sort of very unglamorous part of filmmaking where you just like have to come up with a different option for something and you just kind of like slowly come to an answer and find the right thing. Not everything is kind of like a big moment, but in this case they did make a good story out of it because they're like, oh, this is like really about getting through something together, and the song
Yeah,
being a
it's a
duet
duet. Yeah.
helps create a bit more fun in the scene. There's more dynamic for like the two of them to start interacting with each other in the duet part, So anyway, just thought it was kind of a fun
Yeah.
little
No, I love that. I
look
was like,
behind the
oh,
curtain.
oh, Craig, you nailed it.
Nailed it,
There,
Craig.
nailed it, Craig. There's so many other great scenes in this movie. We're gonna probably skip those because we've already been talking forever about
Yeah, we've
the
covered a lot about
characters.
what makes this good scene, but just so you know, just because we talked about all the depressing, traumatic shit about this movie, it's quite
It's
funny too. So go
it's
check it
very
out.
funny. It's very funny. And yeah, I think it's well observed. It's well written. It's great. And I think so. We'll kind of start winding down. A couple of the themes that like I picked out that we both talked about a lot are this movie is a great encapsulation of our season and the theme of siblings are this unique special relationship. They are the people that keep you sane while also being the people that absolutely drive you crazy um and you know up a wall and
Mm-hmm.
also
Mm-hmm. Cue Miss Piggy voice. Mm-hmm.
Kirby. Oh, that was more Yoda. I don't have a good Miss Piggy. It's supposed Frank Oz. What can
They're
I do?
both portrayed by Frank Oz. They're quite close, yes.
Miss Piggy and Yoda are like two
Mm,
sides of the same.
Curly,
Luke Skywalker. Like it's
take
the
me on a
same.
date, you must.
Oh god. And the other theme, it's just like, hey guys, mental health and taking care of your mental health, it's very real. And guess what? Like that shit's hereditary. Take care of it for yourself and future generations.
Take care of yourself, and the next generation will be better off for it.
It will be. You ready for thoughts and takeaways?
Let's do some bow bow thoughts and takeaways. Burrell this
Brr,
Sunday,
brr,
Sunday,
brr.
Sunday. You want to
Okay,
start
go.
us off? Me?
Yeah, you go.
I'll go. Yeah. Um, The Skeleton Twins is a wonderful representation of two siblings who've witnessed some horrible shit in their lives. In every relationship throughout your life, especially one that lasts your entire life, there are times to pull away and there are also times to come together. Considering that the movie begins and ends with the siblings coming to each other's rescue at their each individual suicide attempts, I think that the movie's making the argument that no matter how bad or obnoxious your sibling is or can be, it's always better to have that person to hold on to in both crisis times and in the joyful moments. Milo and Maggie have each other's backs even when they're stabbing each other in it. Um, this movie also feels important to the history of comedy and being one of those important milestones in the kind of 2010s dramedy phase of comedy, sort of the early getting comedic actors to portray very dramatic roles. Um, Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader are absolute superstars of comedy and have gone on to do great things. It's excellent to see them this early in their career, deftly switching lanes from like the Californians to doing this and taking it very seriously. And it was also, I think, a really wonderful preview of things to come. Hader would go on to do documentary now, and of course Barry, which many filmmakers are just absolutely taken with because there's some very arresting imagery and storytelling. And Kristen Wiig, who would go on to do things like Welcome to Me and Palm Royale, among many other great things. It's great to see artists in an early phase taking on something that they're maybe not totally comfortable with or familiar with, but and how that sort of informs the creative decisions they make later on. And in general, this movie is just a great representation of a sibling relationship that's working out their things. I also really like that the movie honestly doesn't really end with all the bows getting tied up. Like
Yeah.
it's a little section of life and they're still going to be messed up. I think that probably Maggie and Lance's relationship is over. It probably wasn't ever really getting off the ground in the first
Yeah.
place. But, these two characters are going to now, I think, still have their problems, but be with each other for the rest of time through the experience. So good
Yeah.
representation of a familial bond.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, thoughts and takeaways. Mental health, it's very real. Trauma is very real. Moving into adulthood and not unpacking and untangling like the shit that has caused roadblocks in your life does nothing except doom your future. And I think the fact that Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig do, like, in their actual real lives, have a very sibling-esque relationship helps to carry their dramatic tension of this film. It would be hard to watch if there were no moments of levity and connection
Mm-hmm.
and joy and silliness. The clear love that Milo and Maggie have for each other, as estranged and tense as that is, all of that fucked up complicatedness hangs on this structure of love and closeness and silliness and
Mm-hmm.
shared experience that is their bond. It's a really good example and portrayal of how the hard parts of life are made easier and also harder by having somebody that really sees the essence of who you are. Um, because again, those people are not going to necessarily say the thing that you want to hear, but they are going to say the thing that you need to hear. And Milo and Maggie they are each imperfect individuals, but together they are greater than the sum of their parts. And I think that's a beautiful thing to show on film, of two siblings being adults joining forces and realizing, like, for all our shit, we're better together than we are apart. And I really appreciate that.
Well put.
Guess what it's time for, Evan?
What is it time for, Mayor?
Tambok na siksi. Tambok na siksi.
Vibe check. It's time for a vibe check.
It's time for a vibe check. You got the
For
vibe
the-
check. You got the vibe check. We got the vibe check.
Oh my god. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see Evan's Vince McMahon impression. So, for those of you who may be listening for the very first time, first of all, thank you so much. And secondly,
We love
Evan,
you.
we love you. Secondarily, Evan and I do not rate films on a star system or a number system. We rate films on two things and two things only, and that is, how is the story and how are the vibes. So, Evan,
Yes.
how is the story? How is the vibes?
How were the vibes, darling? The vibes were
Darling.
excellent, executed in great aplomb. Couldn't
No.
say better otherwise.
Oh, was it lovely, darling?
Digging the Midwestern melancholy on display with
No,
these
it's very New
sad
England.
puppy dog people.
It's very like waspy sadness is the vibe.
That's right. A little bit of upstate New York, a little bit of sad
Oh,
Chihuahua.
a little
Ooh,
bit of
oh
a little bit
dear.
of like, "Ooh, I have a sad vest on. Oh, I'm so sad in my
Yes,
vest.
I don't want to pick up the leaves. I'm sad.
I'm
Let me go wander by
sad."
the river and pet a lone stray cat. Um, yeah, that's the vibe, man. It's
That's
just
the
like,
vibe. It's a very vibey movie. The vibe is sadness. That is still a vibe, but it's like
yeah,
a very vibey movie. Like for lack of a better term, like the story is pretty like simple. It's well executed, it's well written, it's well acted. The story is like pretty simple but really good, and it's just like a very vibey movie. You just are like existing in these people's worlds for a moment in time.
totally. Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's no wonder they got Luke Wilson to be dude bro
Mm,
guy in this movie. He's yeah, and they needed somebody who wasn't on the verge of a fucking mental collapse every 8 seconds.
dude, for real though, like straight up. Yeah. Good story, good vibes. I mean, bad vibes, but well executed bad vibes.
Yeah, well executed sad vibes. No,
Well
I'm into it.
well
I liked
executed
existing in that world, they did a good
yeah.
job representing it for
Yeah,
sure.
well executed sad vibes. And also because and this is the last time we'll do this until we do another season of sibling movies.
Too true.
We are also rating the movies in this season on a sibling scale 1 through 10. How are like the sibling vibes? I said 11 out of 10 and then you came in strong with 100 out of 10 exclamation point, and I was like, man,
That's right.
I was like,
I'm
go fuck your
going.
hyperbolic ass. Like, what the fuck, bro?
That's right. I was like, I'll see your 11 out of 10 and raise you 100 out of 10. Let's the bidding war starts at 100. Go.
Then I say it's 101 times infinity out of 10. No
Then I
backseat.
say it's a
No.
million to the end of the universe and back, never ending. No take backsies out of 10.
I think what we're saying is we both really dug the sibling vibes in this movie.
Yes, 100%.
We did.
Yeah, good
Well,
representation of adult kids trying to work it out
trying to work
messily
it
with
out,
each other
man.
with candid conversations and humor.
Exactly. And what else can we hope for in this life? All right.
What else,
Well,
indeed?
thank you so much. That brings us to the end of this episode, as well as the end of season 2. Season
Woo!
3
We
will
did
be.
it.
Woo! We did it! Season 3 is upcoming. We do not know what the theme is yet. However, we would love to hear your thoughts, not only about the films in this season, but also what theme of movies would you like to see in season 3? Email us at brothersiblingmovie@gmail.com. You can also watch us and all of our delightful jokes and japes on YouTube at Brother Sibling Movie. You can follow along on Instagram at Brother Sibling Movie. Evan,
hmm
where can the good people find you?
The good people can find me as my handle Art of Evan K on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook page, and my website, artofevank.com. Also find me on Letterboxd, Evan Kerna, Koehne, and you can see my reviews for these movies and many of the other silly things that I have to say
Woo!
about modern cinema.
Modern cinema, darling. If
Darling.
you would like to follow me on Instagram, I don't know why you would, but it's there. It's a possibility. You can find me at Lawn Daddy Lives Here. There are underscores between each of the words. So Lawn underscore Daddy underscore lives underscore here. You can see pictures
Wait,
of
I thought there wasn't an underscore between lawn and daddy.
oh
You've
my
said
god.
this many, many times.
Evan, every time we talk about this, and I have to tell you again,
Lawn is a
that
modifier
lawn
of
is the
daddy.
modifier of daddy, and they're separate words. Ergo, there is an underscore between them. Lawn underscore daddy underscore lives underscore here. Lawn daddy
Okay.
lives here with underscore between the words. That's how it
All
goes.
right. I trust
Where we
you. You
live.
know your handle better than I do.
I just posted some pictures of weird weeds that are growing in my yard that look really beautiful and fun. So that's where you can find us. We are so thrilled to be rounding out season 2 of this here precious and amazing money losing endeavor. We hope to see you in season 3, whatever the theme of that season may be.
I look forward to it as well. So until the next time, go watch a movie with your sibling.
You know what? I will see you and raise you a go watch a movie with your sibling.
I will see you and raise you a go and watch a movie with your sibling infinitely into infinity times a million.
I don't have time for this. Goodbye. I love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.